Well, thanks so much for taking time to speak with me today. I feel like I'm probably the generation that appreciates Smurfs from like, its get-go. Maybe not maybe not its original iteration of like, its 50s, whatever comic start, but I can remember definitely watching like 80s cartoons. I remember going to my grandparents' house and like trying to steal their little tiny figurines from the kitchen because they got them when they traveled. And yeah, definitely love the cartoon. But how is it to kind of breathe life back into, this popular? I feel like it's very generational, but now that it's kind of back again, how is it to breathe life back into that? How is it like how does that feel to you guys?
Um, um, Great question, Jana. Okay, I'll kick it off. Easy. That's in a nutshell. It's easy, and for two reasons. One of them is that basically it's a classic, and it's a good classic. It's like good wine. It's like it's there, and I think it has appeal to many generations because the comic strips started in the 50s. The only series that was ever made was late 70s. That that was my childhood in the 80s. So that had been broadcasted already over and over and over again. The movies came out a couple of years ago. So this thing basically speaks to many generations. And then the issue was, well, how do we update it without losing that classic element? Because you want that. You want to, you want to retain the classic sort of Smurf thing, but you have to update it so that it's in today's flavor. And then some characters have to evolve, because we're not in the 70s or in the 50s anymore, and so you kind of have to ease those things into there. And I think the script writers did a great job. I think Peyo stuck by them. The director's doing what he has to do. And the actors are basically updating it also with, layers of humor and all of that stuff in a nutshell. We could go on the whole evening just with that question. You do realize that.
Oh, Jana, your mic is muted.
I muted myself because New York City is super loud, even when you try to be
Oh,
quiet. I was going to say yes, and I feel like that's kind of why I started with it because you could talk about it for I feel like a long time. Nele, do you have anything you want to add to that?
yeah, for me, it's really it fulfills me with pride to be able to work on it because it's such an iconic brand. It's from our home country, so to be able to work on that is really it's really a joy. And yeah, and we try to put a lot of love into it, and I think that goes for every person that worked on the series, and I think that shows when you see the show.
And related to that, I think you guys are getting ready to release season one, volume three on DVD, which clearly then it's you know classic, but also successful again in its own right in this iteration. Sort of more modernized. We still have our fun little blue woodland creatures in their little caps and living in their little mushroom houses. Obviously, it's timeless. Mark, Gargamel, I think, is everybody's kind of. I mean, he's a villain, but he's sort of a lovable villain, right? Like, what are your favorite aspects of him, or the elements that you love to bring to life when you vocalize him?
Well, I think you nailed it. He's lovable. And he has to be. He has to be because when I fleshed him out, and that's what I did, the first thing I asked myself was, how did he end up in that predicament? How did this guy end up all by himself, old in a decrepit building with a cat that's more intelligent than he is, chasing an obsession, which is catching things that may be in his imaginarium for all I know. And that's how I kind of went about the character, knowing that he'd obviously, he'd been embodied several times by other people, that he'd been a comic, and he's an iconic villain. I mean, so you have to kind of borrow from all those things. And then, but my angle was, if I make him into a lovable character, kind of like a Charles Chaplin, you want to hug him, you feel sorry for him. He is evil. Yeah, sure. He wants to eat Smurfs. I mean, that's bad. You don't eat people, right? People tell you that when you're a kid, you don't eat people. But I think if you feel sorry for him, it makes him genuinely very funny, and it makes him frightening without you know, because it is for children as well. It makes him a big grand villain without him being frightening, if you see what I mean. And I think he has to be imposing without giving kids nightmares. And at the same time, he's hilarious. I mean, his cat finds out better things than he can, for God's sakes. And, you know, he's scared of his mother. It could be Hitchcockian, you know, for all I know, you know, but it's not. So I think if we keep it like that, that's the great aspect of him, I think, is all of those elements, but that you have to love him at the end of the day. You feel sorry for him, you know?
I mean, I think that's one of the things that's always made him kind of, you know, a fan favorite, right? Like he is just, you know, it's sort of like the villain in, you know, Strawberry Shortcake, right? Like he's,
yeah, you
have
nailed
to
it.
love him because he's not, he's almost so imperfect. You have to be like, what is, why, right? You're like, why? What is wrong with you? Why can you not get this right? And yeah, Azrael, I mean, obviously, like you have to, everybody loves Azrael. I remember having a stuffed animal of him when I was a kid.
Great day.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jana.
Bye.
Bye.